In a quiet town where whispers floated on the wind, there lived a man known only as the Silent Gambler. He was a shadow among shadows, slipping in and out of sight with an air of mystery. Many talked about him, speculating on his past and the secrets he kept. Dressed in dark clothing that blended with the night, he moved silently through saloons and gambling halls, where the flickering lights cast both excitement and unease. The gambler had sharpened his skills at cards and dice over many years. At first glance, he seemed an enigma, someone who played for the thrill rather than riches. But those who got close enough learned that beneath his calm exterior lay a fierce determination to right wrongs he observed in the world around him. Though he rarely spoke, when he did, people listened. His words were few but meaningful. The Silent Gambler understood the complexities of fate and chance better than most. After all, he had seen lives changed by a single roll of the dice or a well-played hand. As news of the widow's plight reached him, he felt an unusual tug at his heartstrings. He knew he couldn't sit back while injustice loomed like a dark cloud over her small piece of land. It was time for him to step out of the shadows and act against those who exploited the vulnerable. The widow, named Clara, had lived in the little house on the edge of town for as long as she could remember. It had been a gift from her late husband, James, who had poured his heart and soul into every corner of their land. Together, they had planted fields of golden wheat that swayed gently in the breeze, creating a beautiful landscape that felt alive with memories. After James's sudden passing, Clara found herself lost in a world that felt darker and heavier. The land became her refuge, but it also reminded her of the love she had lost. Every sunrise brought a mix of hope and sorrow. She would rise early to tend to the crops he had cherished. Yet, without James by her side, the burden of maintaining the farm weighed heavily on her shoulders. To make matters worse, the widow's tax loomed over her like an ominous storm cloud. Clara worked tirelessly, saving every penny to pay the tax, knowing that failure would mean losing the only piece of her life that remained, her beloved land. As the days passed, anxiety crept in. The banker's cold demeanor only added to her fears, reminding her that she was on borrowed time. Despite all this, Clara's spirit refused to break. She held on to hope that somehow, she would find a way to keep what was rightfully hers. The widow's tax was a cruel reminder of the harsh realities Clara faced. After her husband's death, the law required her to pay a hefty sum, a fee that seemed designed to push widows like her into despair. While some townsfolk whispered about how the tax was meant to support the community, Clara saw it as an unfair weight placed on her shoulders, making it harder for someone already grieving. Each month brought the same anxiety. Clara would sit at her kitchen table, bills spread out like a deck of cards. She would tally up every penny, calculating if she could set aside enough to meet the demand. Meanwhile, the banker waited with sharp eyes and a cold smile, ready to take advantage of any misstep she made. He had little sympathy for her plight, viewing her as just another number on a ledger rather than a grieving woman fighting to keep her home. As the tax deadline approached, Clara felt as if time was slipping through her fingers like sand. The vibrant field she had once tended with joy now became a constant source of worry. She often found herself staring out at the land that held so many memories with James, praying she could find a way to protect it. The thought of losing everything she held dear filled her with dread but also ignited a fire within her to fight back against such injustice. The banker, Mr. Williams, was a man whose heart seemed to grow colder with every coin he collected. With a keen eye for profit, he relished the power he held over the townspeople, especially widows like Clara. He would often stroll through town, dressed in his sharp suit, exuding an air of confidence that masked his ruthlessness. To him, Clara was merely a name on a ledger, and he seemed to take pleasure in reminding her of this fact. As Clara struggled to pay the widow's tax, Mr. Williams devised schemes that made her life even more difficult. He sent men to inspect her farm, claiming it was for maintenance purposes but really seeking any excuse to declare her property neglected. Each complaint he filed felt like another cut to her already bruised spirit. When Clara managed to scrape together enough money to meet the tax deadline, he simply shifted the goalposts, citing new fees and fines that felt arbitrary and unfair. In his eyes, Clara's desperation was nothing more than an opportunity to seize what was hers. There were whispers around town that he had done this before, bankrupting widows and turning their land into profitable ventures for himself. The looming threat of losing her home felt suffocating, but Clara's resolve grew stronger, igniting a fire within her to stand against the banker's cruelty and reclaim her land from his grasp. As the silent gambler moved through town, he overheard murmurs about Clara's plight in a dimly lit saloon. Hotel guests and townsfolk shared stories of her struggles, expressing sympathy for the widow who fought tirelessly against the oppressive banker. Each tale painted a picture of a woman who clung to hope despite the mounting odds against her. The gambler felt a stirring within him, a sense of recognition and kinship with her spirit. That night, he could hardly sleep. The image of Clara, carrying burden after burden, weighed on his mind like a heavy cloak. He knew what it was like to face insurmountable obstacles, having dealt with his own shadows in life. Her story struck a chord that echoed deep in his heart. It ignited a fire of purpose that urged him to take action. By dawn, the silent gambler had made up his mind. He would not let Clara fight this battle alone. Gathering his few belongings and quiet resolve, he set out for her farm, determined to offer help in any way he could. His plan began to form: he would pay off her widow's tax and confront the banker directly. This time, it wouldn't just be fate deciding Clara's future, he would intervene as an ally willing to challenge the forces that threatened her land and spirit. Under the cover of night, the silent gambler made his way to Clara's farm. He had arranged to meet her at a secluded spot near the barn, where the shadows would shield them from prying eyes. As he approached, he could see her silhouette against the starlit sky, and his heart raced with a mix of anticipation and anxiety. "Clara," he called softly, wanting to assure her that she was not alone. She turned around, surprise flickering in her eyes before she quickly masked it with curiosity. The gambler felt a rush of emotions as he took in the weary lines on her face, a reflection of all the burdens she carried. "I've come to help you," he said earnestly, revealing his plan to pay off her widow's tax. Clara's expression shifted from confusion to hope, but he could sense her hesitation. "But I need you to understand something," he continued, his voice dropping lower. "I've faced my own battles in life, regrets that weigh heavily on me." As they spoke under the stars, he shared stories of his past, tales of loss and choices made that had led him down a lonely path. Clara listened intently, finding strength in their shared vulnerabilities. In that moment, they forged an unspoken bond, two souls united by struggle and determination to fight for what mattered most. Together, they would face the challenges ahead, emboldened by newfound trust. As the first light of dawn painted the sky in hues of orange and pink, the silent gambler stood outside the bank, heart racing with anticipation. Today was the day he would confront Mr. Williams in a high-stakes game that would determine Clara's fate. He had challenged the banker to a duel at cards, knowing that if he won, Clara's land would be returned to her free and clear. It was a gamble not just for money but for justice. The townsfolk began to gather, whispering among themselves as they sensed the tension in the air. The gambler took a deep breath, recalling Clara's hopeful smile from their last meeting. He could feel her determination wrapped around him like armor. It strengthened his resolve as he stepped inside the bank. Mr. Williams awaited him, an air of smug confidence surrounding him like a dark cloud. The banker adjusted his collar and smirked, clearly underestimating the silent gambler's skill. As they took their seats at the table, a heavy silence fell over the room, broken only by the sound of shuffling cards. With each dealt hand, stakes rose higher and higher. The gambler focused intently, his mind sharp as he remembered Clara's struggles and everything riding on this moment. It was more than just a game, it was about fighting against oppression and reclaiming hope for a future worth having. The atmosphere in the bank was thick with tension as the silent gambler and Mr. Williams prepared for their duel. The townsfolk gathered close, their whispers barely masking their anticipation. Each person understood the stakes. For Clara, this was not just about land, it was about dignity and hope. For Mr. Williams, it was a chance to crush that hope and extend his grip over the town. As the table was set, the gambler felt his heart pound in rhythm with the ticking clock on the wall. He noted every detail, the sharpness of the banker's suit, the glint of confidence in his eyes. He knew Williams thrived on intimidation and manipulation, but today would be different. Today, he would rely on skill and resolve rather than fear. Each player eyed the deck of cards like a predator sizing up its prey. The gambler could sense Clara's spirit with him, urging him to stay calm and focused. He thought of her struggles, her unwavering strength in the face of despair, which fueled his determination. As they shuffled and dealt their cards, time seemed to stretch into eternity. Every card flipped over held a hint of fate, each decision could tip the balance toward victory or defeat. The tension hung heavy in the air, only one could emerge victorious from this duel, leaving everything else hanging in fragile uncertainty. It was a game where not just fortunes were at stake, lives were intertwined with every hand played. As the cards were dealt, the atmosphere crackled with anticipation. The silent gambler quickly assessed his hand, feeling a rush of confidence mixed with caution. He had studied the banker's tactics and knew he needed to stay one step ahead. Each round brought unexpected twists. Just when it seemed like Mr. Williams had the upper hand, the gambler would play a surprising card that shifted the momentum. With every win, the tension in the room intensified, gasps erupted from the crowd, and Clara's hopes flickered like a candle in a gale. As the banker played aggressively, trying to intimidate with sly glances and feigned confidence, the gambler remained calm, tapping into his sharpened instincts. He recalled the stories Clara had shared about her struggles, her fierce spirit igniting a fire within him. As the game progressed, Mr. Williams took risks that backfired, revealing cracks in his facade. The gambler seized these moments, skillfully outmaneuvering the banker with strategic plays that showcased his depth of experience. And then came a pivotal moment, a high-stakes bet that would either seal Clara's fate or restore her land. With hearts pounding, both players laid their final cards on the table. The outcome of the dramatic duel hung in the balance, teetering between hope and despair, as everyone held their breath in expectation of what fate had in store for them all. As the final cards were laid on the table, silence enveloped the room, thick with anticipation. The gambler's heart pounded in his chest as he glanced at Clara's hopeful face in the crowd. He could feel the weight of their shared journey resting heavily upon him. In one swift motion, Mr. Williams revealed his hand with a smug grin, but the gambler's calm resolve remained unshaken. With a flick of his wrist, he turned over his cards, and the room erupted in gasps. Against all odds, he had won. Clara's land was safe, they had triumphed over oppression. Relief washed over him like a wave, mingled with the bittersweet taste of victory. The cheers of the townsfolk filled his ears, yet he noticed the bitter disappointment etched on Mr. Williams' face as the banker slowly collected his belongings. In that moment, the gambler understood that victory was not only about reclaiming land, it was also about restoring dignity and hope for Clara and others like her. As dawn broke fully across the horizon, casting warm light into the bank, he felt a sense of purpose rekindled within him. Clara rushed forward, tears of joy streaming down her cheeks as she thanked him for his bravery. The gambler smiled, knowing that while this battle was won, their journey together had only just begun. They would face whatever came next side by side, united in their quest for justice and a brighter future. As Clara and the silent gambler stood together in the warm light of dawn, they reflected on the tumultuous journey that had brought them to this moment. Their victory over Mr. Williams was not just a personal triumph, it represented hope for others in the community who faced similar struggles. The townsfolk, once silent witnesses to injustice, now looked to Clara and the gambler as symbols of resilience, demonstrating that even in the face of overwhelming odds, change is possible. The unlikely alliance between a grieving widow and a mysterious gambler showcased the power of compassion and determination. Each had their own battles, Clara with her grief and the burden of loss, and the gambler with his past regrets, but together they found strength in vulnerability. Their bond served as a reminder that true courage often comes from shared experiences and understanding. As they walked through the fields Clara had fought so hard to save, they envisioned a future where no one would face oppression alone. The community began to unite, emboldened by their story, inspired to challenge injustices that had long been accepted as part of life. Together, they could foster an environment of support and encouragement. In that moment, Clara and the silent gambler realized that hope is not merely a wish, it is an active force born from unity. With their hearts set on justice, they were ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead, together paving the way for a brighter tomorrow.